You know, sometimes history doesn't feel like a dusty old book. Sometimes it feels like a cold breath down your neck. And today, yeah, it's one of those stories. Picture this: London, May 19th, 1536. The sky hangs gray and heavy, like it's been smudged by a tired artist. The Tower of London looms, as if guarding a secret. Inside, something England has never seen is about to happen. A queen, not banished or imprisoned, but executed. This wasn't going to be some messy axe job. They'd gone fancy for this one. A special scaffold had been built, lower, quieter, tucked away. Why? Because they'd brought in a French executioner with a sword, sleek, foreign, and sharp enough to slice through more than just a neck. Whispers spread fast. Servants and guards exchanged uneasy glances. No one dared say it aloud, but everyone knew. Anne Boleyn, the queen who had turned England upside down, was going to die that morning. And here's the thing, this wasn't just a royal soap opera. Anne wasn't just any queen. She was the reason Henry VIII had torn his entire country away from the Pope and started his own church. She wasn't just a woman he loved, she was a revolution in pearls and velvet. But now, stripped of her crown, locked away in a cold stone room, she was simply a prisoner with a death sentence. And outside, the crowd waited, but you're probably wondering, how did it get this far? I mean, queens don't exactly wake up one morning and find themselves scheduled for decapitation, like it's some royal calendar mix-up. No, this wasn't sudden. This was a slow burn that started years before that gray morning. Anne Boleyn didn't waltz into this story wearing a crown. She came from ambition, pure, sharp, unapologetic ambition. Her father, Thomas Boleyn, wasn't some random noble. He was a skilled diplomat, always working the political chessboard, while her mother, Elizabeth Howard, came from one of the most powerful families in England. Anne grew up watching people trade power like cards at a high-stakes table. From a young age, Anne wasn't tucked away in some dusty manor learning embroidery. She was in the thick of it. Educated in the Netherlands, fluent in French, soaking up everything from art and poetry to politics and scandal. When she served at the French court, she learned more than fancy table manners. She mastered charm. She understood exactly how to make people lean in when she spoke and how to make them listen. When she finally returned to England around 1522, she wasn't the typical Tudor beauty. No pale skin, no golden locks. Instead, she had dark, striking features, olive-toned skin, long black hair, fierce eyes that practically dared people to look away. But honestly, she didn't need the standard beauty. She had something far more dangerous: intelligence, confidence, and this magnetic charm that could fill a room before she even said a word. And it wasn't long before the most powerful man in the land took notice: King Henry VIII himself. At the time, Henry was stuck in a marriage that wasn't giving him what he wanted most: a son. His frustration was growing, his eyes wandering, and when he tried to turn Anne into just another royal mistress, she hit him with a line that would change history. "If you want my body, you must give me a crown." And just like that, the game began. Now you've got to admire the boldness here. Most people, when faced with a king's advances, either swooned or ran for the hills. But Anne basically looked Henry dead in the eye and said, "Put a ring on it or keep walking." Absolute nerve. And here's where it gets messy, in a way that only Tudor history can. Henry wasn't used to hearing no. He wasn't exactly the poster boy for patience either. What started as an obsession with Anne quickly turned into a full-blown royal crisis. For 7 years, yes, 7, Henry chased her, and the whole kingdom watched the drama unfold like it was the hottest reality show in Europe. Henry didn't just whisper sweet nothings and send roses. No, he went nuclear. He demanded a divorce from his wife, Catherine of Aragon. When the Pope refused to grant it, Henry said, "Fine, I'll make my own church." And that's exactly what he did. He broke England away from the Catholic Church, declared himself the supreme head of the Church of England, and basically told the Pope to take a hike. This wasn't just about lust anymore. It became a political and religious earthquake. People weren't just gossiping about Anne anymore. They were choosing sides, and some of them didn't have a choice at all. Finally, in January 1533, Henry and Anne were secretly married. She was already pregnant, and both of them were crossing their fingers for a son. But in September, when the baby arrived, it wasn't a boy, it was a girl, Elizabeth. And let's just say Henry wasn't exactly handing out cigars in the royal nursery. Still, Anne was crowned queen in an extravagant ceremony, and for a little while it seemed like she'd won it all. But here's the thing about playing the game at the highest level. Everyone's watching, waiting for you to slip. And Anne? She wasn't one to sit quietly and smile for the portraits. Oh no, she had plans of her own. Anne wasn't the kind of queen who just sat around looking pretty and waving from balconies. Nope, she believed she had a purpose, and she wasn't shy about it. She jumped right into politics, championed religious reform, and even pushed for the Bible to be translated into English so common people could actually read it. Bold move? Absolutely. Popular? Not exactly. Anne didn't just step on toes, she stomped on them in heels. The old-school noble families couldn't stand her. Catholics saw her as the devil in silk, blaming her for England's break from Rome. And inside her own court? Well, spies and backstabbers were lurking around every corner, ready to pounce. But here's where everything really started to unravel. Her downfall didn't begin with some scandalous affair or treasonous plot. It started with heartbreak. Anne became pregnant again after Elizabeth was born, but in 1534 she lost the baby. That was devastating enough, but in the Tudor court it wasn't just personal. It was political suicide. She was supposed to deliver the all-important male heir. Without it, her position grew shaky. Still, she wasn't ready to give up. She got pregnant again in early 1536, but fate had other plans. Around the same time, Henry had a terrifying accident during a jousting match. He was knocked unconscious, and some even thought he might die. The shock of hearing that news reportedly caused Anne to miscarry again. And this time, it was a boy. That loss, it broke something. For Anne, for Henry, for everything they had built together, she knew it too. She reportedly told her attendants after that miscarriage, "I see all the good joy in this world is finished for me." And sadly, she was right, because once the dream of a son was gone, her enemies moved fast. Suddenly, whispers turned into accusations, and rumors sharpened into weapons. Anne wasn't just falling out of favor, she was being hunted. Now, here's where the story stops being court gossip and turns downright sinister. Anne wasn't just out of favor, she was surrounded. The wolves had smelled blood, and this time, they weren't leaving without a kill. Leading the charge, Thomas Cromwell. Yeah, that Thomas Cromwell, Henry's most powerful advisor. Once he and Anne had been allies during the Reformation, working together to shake up the kingdom. But now, Cromwell saw her as a liability, a ticking time bomb with a crown. And once Henry's love started to fade, Cromwell knew exactly how to push her over the edge. By April 1536, the whispers around Anne turned into something much more dangerous. Cromwell launched a full-blown investigation into her private life, not because there was any real evidence, but because rumors were enough. And honestly, that's all Tudor politics ever needed. On May 2nd, Anne was arrested. The charges? Buckle up because it's wild. She was accused of adultery with 5 different men, including her own brother, George Boleyn. They claimed she had plotted to kill the king. Treason, incest, conspiracy. You name it, they threw it at her. None of it made sense. The so-called proof was flimsy at best, completely ridiculous at worst. But this wasn't about facts. In Henry's court, truth was just a prop. The goal here wasn't justice, it was erasure. Anne's trial on May 15th wasn't really a trial at all. It was more like a stage play where everyone already knew the ending. She wasn't allowed a lawyer, she couldn't face her accusers. The jury? Packed with men who wanted her gone, and yet she didn't crumble. Anne stood there and defended herself with such calm and intelligence that even her enemies had to admit she was remarkable. One witness later said she spoke with such wisdom and dignity that it was like listening to an angel. But angelic or not, the verdict was already written. Guilty. Death by burning at first, though Henry, in what some called mercy and others called a PR move, changed it to beheading. Her fate was sealed, and just like that, the day arrived, the last morning of Anne Boleyn's life. May 19th, 1536, The sun hadn't even warmed the cold gray walls of the tower when Anne woke up, knowing it would be her final sunrise. She was told the execution would happen at 8 a.m. She prayed, received communion, and got herself ready, not just physically, but emotionally. Quiet, steady, dignified. But then, in what can only be described as one last cruel twist, her execution was delayed. Hours ticked by, dragging her through a slow-motion nightmare. Noon. That's when they called her, and through all of it, she kept whispering under her breath, "Lord, have mercy on me." She swore she was innocent, and honestly, everyone knew it. Finally, the moment came. Anne said her last goodbyes to her ladies-in-waiting, handing them small, simple gifts: a prayer book, a handkerchief, a bit of jewelry. Nothing grand, just quiet tokens to be remembered by. "Remember me and how I end," she said softly. No begging, no bitterness, just a quiet request to be remembered as she was, strong, proud, unbroken. As she stepped onto the scaffold, the crowd fell silent. No shouting, no jeering. Even those who had once cheered for her downfall now watched in uneasy quiet. Anne walked calmly, dressed in gray and crimson, her head high, still every inch the queen, crown or no crown. She spoke her final words with steady grace. No defense, no blame. She simply asked God to protect the king and said she was dying according to the law. Then, with calm hands, she adjusted her own blindfold and knelt. The executioner, dressed in black, quietly called for his sword to distract her. Anne turned her head just slightly, and in that small final movement, it was over. One clean strike, no struggle, no scream, just silence. Anne Boleyn was gone. Her body was placed in a plain chest, an arrow chest meant for weapons, not queens. No coffin, no grand farewell. She was buried quietly in the chapel at the Tower, beneath the same stones she once walked as queen. But her story didn't end there. The daughter she left behind, Elizabeth, would grow up to become Queen Elizabeth I, one of history's most powerful rulers. 45 years on the throne, England's golden age. Anne's legacy didn't just survive, it reigned. She may have lost everything that May morning, her crown, her life, but what she left behind was bigger than all of it. Proof that women who dare to lead don't vanish quietly. Nearly 500 years later, her name is still spoken. And if you've stuck with me through this wild, tragic, and strangely inspiring tale, here's your moment to speak up too. Drop a comment and tell me, was Anne a victim, a rebel, or something else entirely? Oh, and don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe, because trust me, history's full of stories just like this, bloody, bold, and impossible to forget. And who knows, the next one might just change how you see the world.